Hello and welcome to another episode of The Kindness Habit. I have heard about this organization for over 10 years. A good friend of mine named Tim Lang was a coach with this organization, and I was always really intrigued by it. So he introduced me to our next guests, who actually were some of the founders of this organization that help homeless people really achieve more confidence by getting them to run a half marathon. So when you finish listening to this episode, you're going to be inspired about how you personally can make a difference and also connect to people in your community in a different way. So please help me welcome my guests they live in California, Steve Tierney and Greg Clark. Welcome to the show.
Woo! Thank you. Thank you so much.
And Greg, I was joking with you that we could be related because we both have an E on our last name. So we have to do some family tree research.
Yes.
But I love your last name.
I know. Good for your side of the family as well, that they didn't drop the E for simplicity's sake.
Exactly. Good. Well, thank you so much for making time to do this. I am so excited to hear. I read on your website that you are for accountants, and you got this idea over 10 years ago. But I would love to hear your story about why you started this organization. I know that it's impacted thousands of people. I actually put my running shoes in my background today because I've done several half marathons. So I also know what it takes to train for that.
So I was wondering if that was there always or just for today.
I put that here for our interview. Yes.
Nice.
So who wants to just kick it off and first introduce yourself and then just let us know, well, first what you do for your day job and then just how you're inspired over 10 years ago for this idea.
Okay. Well, my name is Steve Tierney. I am a recovering CPA. So that is actually my day job.
Nice.
And so, I sit behind a desk, 8 to 12 hours a day, depending upon the season and what's going on. And so about 10 years ago, actually 2008, I decided to run a marathon. I have no idea where that idea came from. I was attending a Franklin Covey seminar. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And so, as a part of the class, it's like, set a goal for yourself. And so I'm like, hey, marathon, let's do it. And so I had no idea where to start. And so I went to the bookstore and I got a book called The Non-Runner's Guide to Marathon Training, because that's what I was, a non-runner.
Right.
So I started running and walking and ran 5 minutes, walked 5 minutes. And then next week I ran 10 and 5 and then 15 and 20. And then finally after 6 weeks, I could run for 5 miles straight. And it was like I won the Olympics, right? Because it was like, wow, I can run 5 miles. Like, this is like the most amazing thing I've ever done. And so each week I would add a mile to my long run. And, each week I was getting this reinforcement that says, you've just done something you've never done in your entire life before. And then it was like again and again. And so just felt this amazing kind of confidence booster, not only like with my work, going, hey, this bank wreck isn't that big of a deal because you can run 10 miles, not that many people can do that. And so it just kind of poured over into other areas like confidence with my family and just so many different things, when you get those endorphins kicking in that go, hey, this isn't a big deal because you can do this and you can handle these adversities and stuff. So 9 months later, I actually did the Long Beach full marathon. We won't post my time here, hopefully, on the podcast.
You finished.
But I finished, exactly. And that's what it is. That's what it was. It was just finishing, frankly, starting something and finishing something and just feeling the achievement along the way. And so continued to run the following year because I didn't want to go back to being 5 minute guy again. And then heard about an idea of working with the homeless and being able to use a hobby to impact other people. And so, really, that's what this is all about, is using something that I enjoy and that has changed my life to now kind of impacting others. And so I went to the Orange County Rescue Mission and said, hey, posed this idea of, hey, would you be interested in doing a half marathon training program? fully assuming that they would say, that's the craziest thing we've ever heard of. Like, what are your qualifications? Like, where's your certifications? That's all Greg stuff. And I expected them to say, this is crazy. Thanks for asking. But, and they said, yeah, let's try it. And so that's when I went back to the book and said, okay, well, I don't know what to do, but let's go 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off, and 10 minutes and 15. And so it's kind of grown since then.
Wow. And so you and Greg work together? Is that the connection, or how did you meet?
Well, actually,
Yeah.
Greg and I don't work together other than we do now.
Oh, yeah.
Greg
But you were
wishes
both
he was
accountants, right? Or
No,
not?
Greg wishes he was an accountant.
No, yeah.
No numbers with Greg. Okay.
I'm the yin to Steve's yang.
Okay. Well, we could be related because I don't do numbers either. And so Greg said, tell me how you met Steve and how you came up with this partnership.
Yeah, so I'm Greg Clark. I'm the executive director of Up and Running Again. And yeah, it's pretty amazing. My wife and I were on a trajectory to be missionaries in Baja, Mexico. Mm-hmm. And we really had a passion in Mexico working with the homeless, the addicted, people in recovery, deportees who are just battling things down there. And that trajectory changed due to different circumstances. And Steve had approached me and asked me to get involved with Up and Running Again. And what's interesting is I previously had a job that didn't allow time for much volunteering, but my wife was engaged as a volunteer with Up and Running Again.
Nice.
And so I knew about Up and Running Again and had come out and done some water stations for some of the long runs a few times, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And Steve asked me if I'd like to come on board. And I said, let me just talk to my wife and kind of pray about it. And then, she was like, you're the perfect person. You should do it. So, and it's a wonderful fit for me. I'm so thankful what I get to do, because unlike Steve, I've been an athlete all of my life, and my wife and I are both endurance athletes. So it's something I already had a passion for and love and do. And then coupling that with just for people who are in homelessness, people who are in addiction recovery, domestic violence situations, all of these things. I just really have a heart and compassion for those people, and saw how Up and Running Again already observing had made a difference. So that's how I got engaged. I said yes with the organization. I said, yes, I'll do it. And now
you're doing it.
Yeah. And it's amazing. I tell people, ask me, I always give the example of Trader Joe's, because everybody's so friendly. I don't know if you have Trader Joe's in Colorado.
Oh yeah, we do.
But the checkout people are always so nice. And how was your day? And I said, my day is great. I got to run with homeless people today. They're like, what? Tell me about that.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Talk about a conversation starter.
Yeah. It's awesome and I've actually recruited volunteers for our organization.
At Trader Joe's, or just talking to people?
Oh, yeah, to baristas or at coffee shops or clerks, because they all say, what? You run with homeless people? Tell me about that, and what does that look like? So
exactly.
So that's how how all that came about. And I'm just so thankful that Steve asked me, because it's really his baby that he birthed. I'm thankful that he asked me to step into it and just really love it.
Oh my gosh. Well, I love the name Up and Running Again. And because it shows that every human can get themselves up and go and do something again. So what was your thought in actually coming up with the name of the organization? And then also, just so the listeners can understand how this actually works, because I love how Steve, you use the books. It's like, okay, baby steps, but just, I want to hear about how they get running shoes and how you get coaches. Like, how does that work? So how did you come up with the name? And then tell the listeners, how does this actually work? Because I want to know more about it.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would tell you the reason it's up and running again is because up and running was taken. So it had to be.
Okay. I like again because it shows
I
like
know. No, clearly I think it actually is super appropriate that it's up and running again, because many of the individuals that are in our program, they were up and running and now they took that step back and now they're rebirth, they're reborn, they're up and running again. And this is the second chance, either through the mission or through our organization as well. And so, yeah, I guess I would say that our organization, we're a partner. We come alongside the missions. Like we always work with a homeless shelter situation. What we found is that those homeless shelters, they do a great job with their job skills and with their spiritual walk and with addiction issues, but there's no physical fitness component. And so we like to come alongside and partner with them as well. And so the way that our program works is, it's kind of a teach a person to fish, I guess I would say, as opposed to just kind of handing them things. And so the way that it works is that we have a 14-week program, or 12 to 14-week program. And if they run for 20 out of the first 24 training runs, we actually provide them with a brand new pair of running shoes.
Wow.
And we will take them to the running shoe store and we get them fitted. They get to pick out whatever shoes that best fit them. I tell them, don't pick the prettiest, don't pick the nicest, pick the ones that feel comfortable, because after 11 miles, you'll be wishing you had the comfy shoes, and not the ones that, look the best.
Right.
Se. And so, and if they continue to run, if they complete 30 or 40 training runs, then we enter them into a local race. That we pay for that as well, and then they run the race. So if they kind of do their part, we provide them with shoes, entry fees, coaching, the goos, the gels. It's kind of a no out-of-pocket cost for the missions and for the runners themselves.
Oh my gosh, I love this. And so how many locations do you have? I know that you're expanding. Like right now you're in Chicago,
Right.
Starting up another group. How many states are you in right now?
Greg can answer that.
Greg.
Yes.
It probably changes like today.
I know, because
and
and it's like amazing because we have grown. So we have programs in I'll go with the states, but I'll start from the West Coast. So California, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Colorado, Texas, Illinois, South Dakota, and North Carolina. So it's
a variety pack.
Yes. So it's just amazing how our program is spread, and people now, through a conference we attend and just kind of word of mouth as well, people know about our program and see the value in it. And there's some real world metrics, not just, of course, running is mentally and physically good for you, but real world metrics that I would love to share with you about what our program does. And when I first came on board, I went to visit our program at the Las Vegas Rescue Mission in Nevada. And my intent was to visit the different programs. I knew we were helping the runners. That was obvious to me, but how are we helping you, rescue mission, recovery program people? And I met with them and they said, oh, we love up and running again. And we want to continue for sure. We love what your program does. And I said, well, tell me about it. Why do you love it so much? And they said, well, if one of our residents does up and running again and finishes the half marathon program, their success rate of their recovery program doubles or more.
Whoa.
And I was just astounded by this. And so my next question was, how do you know this? And they said, well, we've been tracking it, and this is what we're finding. And so then I started posing that question to our other programs. It's like, hey, are you seeing a higher success rate? And the answer is always yes, that where the success rate was improving by 40 to 60%.
Wow.
San Diego Rescue Mission, where we have a very large program, there was for a period of time, they had 100% success rate.
Oh my gosh.
Just amazing. So it's really cool how this simple thing of running, how it can really transform someone and how they view themselves.
Oh my gosh, yes, the confidence. I mean, Steve, you're saying you had more confidence when you went back to work, and
Right.
you are not homeless. You had shelter and you had a job, and yet it increased your confidence as well. So it
Yeah.
makes sense, but these numbers are so exciting that your program is impacting so many people's lives. And Greg, you were talking about the ripple effect. So you have over 1,000 people have completed the half marathons, but we were talking about all the other people that are impacted, from the people who are fitting their shoe at the running store to the volunteers. I love the barista stories, that you're just talking to people, where there's Trader Joe's, recruiting. So tell the listeners a little bit about, when you start telling people what you do, how does it impact other people? Because there's also research. I wrote a book on kindness, and there's research behind what it does for the brain. What happens
Yes.
when we do a kind act, but also when we hear about these things, we have a physical reaction to it. So from you've been interacting with so many different types of people, like, tell us a little bit about the ripple effect of Up and Running Again, because so many people, not just the runners, but so many other lives have been impacted just by what you do.
Yes, no, thanks, Allison. What's really cool is we are a volunteer-led organization. I mean, we could not do this without the generous help of people giving their time. And volunteering for organization looks like different things, but the most common one is coming alongside our runners as they're training and running with them and going on this journey with them. And even what's really cool is I've told people, I've said, have you ever had a bucket list of doing a half marathon? I've had people say, yeah. And I say, well, come out and run with our runners and just do our program. And then the next question they ask me is, how much will this cost me? And I say, nothing. Just come out and support our runners and encourage them. But what happens is, and I tell this to many people now, is you'll come to encourage, but you're going to leave being the one encouraged. And what happens is, and so many of these individuals, I could say so much, but so many of these individuals have very low self-worth and how they view themselves, and a lot of negativity, right, because of their circumstances or where they came from. And just the fact that a volunteer is coming alongside them, supporting them, running with them, and just listening to them is huge. And then the takeaway for the volunteer is they're genuinely impacted. Similar to Steve running his first marathon, they hear these stories or these backstories of these individuals, and their viewpoint of these individuals or what came from changes completely. Secondly, they start viewing their own lives from a different perspective. And that's just huge. And then when we take the runners to the running shoe store, I've had on a number of occasions the staff of the running shoe store say, when you brought Up and Running Again runners in, that made my day. And I just felt so good. And they get to interact, the running shoe store employees get to interact with these individuals that they had normally never interact with. And I would say possibly have literally stepped over on the streets on a sidewalk possibly before. And now they're fitting them with shoes, and their viewpoint changes, and how they're serving and how they feel changes. And one of the managers we work with Fleet Feet a lot, one of the store managers said, Greg, we love it when you bring your runners in, because your running group has a whole different vibe than any other running group that comes in.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Changes our perspective.
Right. Oh my, yes.
And it's helpful for them because they've shared with me, quite honestly, Greg, some of the other running groups are very demanding and like not appreciative of what we're doing.
Yes.
And you come in and it's like the complete opposite, where your runners are just so thankful.
Oh my gosh.
So it's just awesome. So the volunteers, the shoe store employees, people are impacted exponentially, right, through our program. So I always tell people it's not always about the runners. Sometimes it's about the volunteers. Sometimes it's about the shoe store employees.
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, when you said, you may have stepped over this homeless person, it's like every human has a story. And by running with someone, you get to hear their story. And you get to change your experience, because a lot of people have never had an experience with homeless people. So this is a great way to get involved, to change our mindset, and to really be more compassionate, to listen to these people's stories.
Yeah, I think
Steve,
I
what
was
were you
just
gonna
gonna
say?
say, it's changed my perspective on people for sure. I mean, when uh, get to know these individuals, I used to think that, you should just get over your addiction issues. And then when you hear the stories and you realize, oh my gosh, it is so hard. It's a lifelong journey for these individuals.
Yes.
And you hear these stories, and for me, living in Orange County, it's easy to get a narrow focus of my friends. And it's so wonderful to be able to say, some of my closest friends were, an ex-gang member, or a person that was a drug addict at one point, and to kind of go, and now these are like some of my friends that I, call on. It's such a neat situation, and it's such a fun
Oh my
experience.
gosh, yes. Yeah, you have way more diversity in your life. Like you
Yeah.
just understand people so differently.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And how can people get involved? I know one of my other friends, Bert Waugh, has been involved in the homeless for over 20 years in Portland. And he was always saying that white socks is something that the shelters always need. Is there anything that people can do? First, if you're a runner, of course, like see if there's a group in one of those states that you mentioned to see how they could get involved. But what else can the listeners do to make an impact in their own communities?
Well, I think
With
if they are runners and they want to start their own, we are obviously really open to starting new groups in new situations. So, we are very organic, and it's volunteer led. I mean, we have like a couple of, Greg is an employee, and we have a couple of other employees, but for the most part, it's all about the volunteers. And so you kind of heard about some of those obscure places that maybe we were and it's because a volunteer moved there and said, hey, I want to start a group.
Right.
And we said, okay, well, let's find a shelter that's around you, and let's see if a partnership would work. And so that's obviously one way, is if somebody was really passionate about doing this, we would love to help make that happen for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. And they can reach out to you via your website, or what's the best way people can get in touch with you?
Yes. I was going to say website or social. We're on all social media outlets, so that's a good way as well.
Good. And is it just up and running again, or how can they find you?
Yes.
Up and running again?
Yes.
Okay. I love it. Good. And then Greg, what were you going to say?
Well, I just had this thought about people impacting their community, or in driving back to kindness, the point of your podcast. And one thing that's, I think of cognitive behavior, and one thing we talk about is suspending judgment. It's like, man, if people could suspend judgment in our day and age right now, how helpful would that be?
Oh my gosh, yes, for sure. Well, and this is a great way to get to know people. Instead of just assuming and coming up with their story that you think is their story. We don't know people's story unless we really listen and ask the right questions.
Yes. And I just think, whatever, there's a lot of need out in our country, of course, and in our neighborhoods, whatever. And I think we're quick to, prejudge something like, oh, that doesn't do any good, or that's a hopeless situation, or whatever the case may be. And getting back to suspending judgment and just getting engaged and listen to others, or listen to what the need is. And I think of our runners in particular, and I'm in Portland right now, and have 18 men and women signed up to do our next season here in Portland. And it's just so cool for me to spend time with them and hear a little bit of their stories. And everyone has a backstory. I have a backstory, I have a backstory, Steve has a backstory that impacts our lives in certain ways. And and not because you look this way or you live this way or whatever, just suspending that judgment and the person, just listening to them, I think is really, really important.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And that is so kind, how we treat other people in our communities, not to be so judgmental. And everything I'm reading, there's more stress, depression, loneliness, anxiety, suicide. And also, I know specifically in Portland, and I know a lot of other cities, the homeless is going up. And I know that probably has some, I mean, you know way more than I do about this, but I'm sure it's related. So just to be more compassionate, to stop judging. And I love what both of you have done. You're part of the solution. You have made a difference in thousands of people's lives. And I just want to thank you for what you've done. And it's also really healthy, like just to get out and move. So I am so inspired by what you do. I want to thank you so much for being so passionate and changing so many people's lives to give them the opportunity to get up again. And one more time, so just people who want to get a hold of you and either donate or figure out how they can start a program, the website is the best, which is just Steve.
Yes, upandrunningagain.org is the website. And if you put Up and Running Again, it comes right up. Social media handles, either Facebook or Instagram is probably the best way. You can message us through those social media sites and we would get back to you. But yeah, we would love to start a new program somewhere else and impact people somewhere else would be awesome.
I love it. And so you can be like Steve, who had never run before, or Greg, who's a super athlete. Anyone can do this, right? And you can train yourself to be able to either volunteer, whether you're giving out water, but just somehow impacting other people's lives through your time and kindness.
I guess if I can say one last thing, I was just would be, find out what you're passionate about and use it to help other people. I mean, if you're into surfing or whatever, figure out a way to change some people's lives. Use that hobby, use that extra time to find a way to help make someone else's life better.
I love that. Yeah, match your passion with your volunteering, and you're going to be even more motivated and excited to do that.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. 100.
Yay. All right. Well, thank you again for making time. You are making this world such a better place. And listeners, now it's our chance. So figure out what your passion is, check out their website, and let's all do at least one kind act today.